You have 4 minutes before your next meeting starts. And right now, if you're being honest, you have no idea what you just decided in the last one. Your brain is in fog. Your body is locked up from 2 hours of sitting. There's a Slack message you've read 4 times and still haven't answered. And the meeting that's about to start, the one where you're supposed to lead, you're going in depleted, reactive, and operating at maybe 60% of your actual capacity. I've been there. Every executive I've ever coached has been there. But here's what separates the leaders who close the deal at 4:30 p.m. just as sharp as they were at 9 a.m. It's not their IQ, it's not their title, it's not even their experience. It's 4 minutes. 4 minutes that flush cortisol, activate your prefrontal cortex, and move you from survival mode into strategic flow before you walk through that virtual door. I call it the executive reset, and today I'm going to walk you through the exact 3-phase protocol I've used with senior leaders at the highest levels of global business. But before I do, I'm genuinely curious about you. Drop a comment right now and tell me, how do you currently handle decision fatigue when the stakes are high? Your best tip, your biggest struggle. I read every single one because the most powerful protocol isn't the one I invented in a lab, it's the one we build together from the field. Now, let's get into it. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Silas Kincaid. I'm a performance neuroscientist and executive consultant. For the last 18 years, I've worked inside boardrooms, green rooms, and war rooms with some of the most high-functioning, high-pressure leaders on the planet. CEOs navigating billion-dollar pivots, division heads managing teams of 500 across 12 time zones, negotiators closing deals that reshape markets. What I do is not motivation. I don't do hype. I don't sell you on mindset magic. What I do is translate neuroscience into protocols that produce measurable performance outcomes in your next meeting, your next negotiation, your next leadership moment. Every single video on this channel is built on that same commitment, science you can use today. If that's what you're here for, welcome. Subscribe because we're just getting started. For those of you who've been here a while, you already know the deal. We go deep, we go real, and we don't leave until you have something you can use before your next calendar invite fires. Today is no different. Let me start with something that almost no one in the performance space will say out loud. Before I get into the science, I want to know, how many back-to-back meetings are you carrying today? Just drop the number in the comments right now, because if it's more than 4, what I'm about to say is going to feel uncomfortably personal. The 2026 professional reality is this. The average knowledge worker now spends 63% of their working day in scheduled meetings or synchronous communication threads that demand real-time cognitive output. 63%. That leaves 37% for the work those meetings are supposedly about. And we haven't even touched on digital fog yet. Digital fog is not a metaphor. It is a documented physiological event. In 2026, with ambient AI assistance, always-on haptic notifications, and immersive video presence expectations baked into every workday, your nervous system is processing what cognitive scientists now call compound stimulus saturation. In plain terms, your brain is running the equivalent of 6 browser tabs, 3 live streams, and a rendering job simultaneously for 8 hours every day. And then we wonder why we can't think clearly by 2 p.m. Here's the part that should genuinely concern you. The power-through culture, the "I'll sleep when I'm dead" executive mythology, is not just philosophically wrong, it is physiologically incompatible with how your brain actually operates. Your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for your highest-order thinking, strategic judgment, complex reasoning, and leadership decision-making, is a glucose-dependent, fatigue-sensitive system. Every decision depletes it. Every unresolved conflict taxes it. Every notification interrupts its recovery cycle. And the more depleted it becomes, the more your brain defaults to one of 2 failure modes: impulsive shortcuts or total avoidance. Both of those failure modes in a high-stakes professional context can cost millions. In a leadership context, they can cost careers.
And here's the uncomfortable truth that the executives I coach learn early. The executives outperforming you in the afternoon are not smarter than you. They're not more experienced than you. They are simply smarter about recovery. They understand neuroefficiency, the competitive discipline of protecting and restoring cognitive capacity, not as a wellness practice, but as a strategic advantage. The gap between the executive who closes deals at 4:30 p.m. and the one who coasts through the final meeting on autopilot is not talent, it's protocol. And that protocol doesn't take an hour. It doesn't require a meditation room, a wellness budget, or a dedicated recovering coach. It takes 4 minutes. Let me show you why 4 minutes is all the science says you need. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a meeting, one that was supposed to be about strategy or a major decision, and realized 15 minutes in that you were still emotionally caught in the argument from the one before it, like you were physically present but mentally still in the last room? If that's ever been you, comment the word reset right now, because I want to see how many of us are living this exact invisible pattern every single day. Here's what's actually happening when that occurs and why it is not a personal failing. It is neuroscience. Your brain does not switch contexts the way a computer switches between windows. There is lag, there is residue. Neuroscientists have named this the overflow effect, the mechanism by which unresolved emotional activation from one cognitive event bleeds directly into the neural processing of the next. When you exit a tense negotiation, a difficult performance review, or even a frustrating client call where nothing got resolved, your amygdala remains partially activated. Your cortisol levels stay elevated, and your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for your best thinking, is partially suppressed because cortisol literally inhibits its activity at the neurochemical level. This is not a metaphor. This is measurable brain chemistry. So, when you walk into your next meeting without a reset, you're not walking in as the full, optimal version of yourself. You're walking in as a cortisol-saturated, partially reactive, cognitively compromised version of yourself. And your team feels it. Your client feels it. Your board feels it. They may not have the language for it, but they feel the difference. Now here's where the science gets extraordinary. Research in cardiovascular neuroscience and psychophysiology consistently shows that targeted breath work combined with sensory grounding can initiate a measurable reduction in cortisol within 3 to 5 minutes.
Not through passive relaxation, but through active parasympathetic induction. That 3 to 5 minute window is the physiological threshold required to shift your autonomic nervous system from sympathetic dominance, the fight or flight state, into parasympathetic dominance. What that means in leadership terms, in 4 minutes, with the right protocol, you can chemically and neurologically move from reactive to strategic. Not theoretically, measurably. And the destination you're moving toward, flow state. Flow state is characterized by elevated dopamine, reduced self-monitoring interference, enhanced working memory, and superior pattern recognition. It is the neurological condition under which deals get closed, breakthroughs happen, and leadership presence becomes almost effortless. It's not a myth, it's a brain state, and it's accessible to you in 4 minutes. Now, let me walk you through exactly how to get there. This is the protocol. 3 phases. 60 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Total, 4 minutes. Every phase has a specific physiological mechanism. Every phase delivers a measurable outcome, and every phase builds directly into the next. Phase 1. Sensory grounding, 60 seconds. I want you to do something that is probably the most difficult thing I'm going to ask you to do in this entire protocol. Close your AI assistant notifications, mute your haptic alerts, physically turn away from your screens. Not because those tools don't matter, they do, but your nervous system cannot begin to downregulate while it remains in active stimulus reception mode. The reset requires a momentary sensory withdrawal, a deliberate detachment from the input streams that have been flooding your cortex for the past hour. For 60 seconds, do this. Place both feet flat on the floor. Feel the physical weight of your body making contact with your chair. Now slowly scan the room. Not to read anything, not to process anything, simply to register neutral physical objects with deliberate attention. The edge of your desk, the texture of the wall, where the light is coming from. What you're activating is called interoceptive awareness, the brain's capacity to reduce anxiety by anchoring its attention to stable, non-threatening physical sensory data. It triggers the first stage of cortisol suppression. It is the neurological equivalent of hitting restart on your base processes before you relaunch your programs. 60 seconds, screens off, physical space. That's it. You just began chemically exiting fight or flight. You may feel a slight release of tension in your shoulders. That's the signal. That's it working. Phase 2. Box breathing, the vagal reset. 60 seconds. Now, breathing. And before your skepticism activates, stay with me, because what you're about to do has a specific biochemical mechanism that goes far beyond general relaxation. Box breathing works by creating a deliberate rhythm in your respiratory cycle that directly activates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body, running from your brainstem through your heart, lungs, and gut. When you stimulate it through controlled breathing, it releases acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that directly suppresses cortisol production and signals the parasympathetic system to assume dominance. Acetylcholine is, neurochemically speaking, the antidote to a stressed executive brain. Here is the protocol. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold at the top for 4 counts, exhale through your mouth for 4 counts, hold at the bottom for 4 counts. That is 1 cycle. Do 4 complete cycles. In 60 seconds, you've completed 4 rounds of direct vagal neurostimulation. I want to ask you right now, comment below, what is your current go-to breathing technique for focus? Box breathing, the physiological sigh, 4-7-8 breathing. I'm building a dedicated performance science episode on breathwork, and your lived experience shapes every word of it. You have just shifted your neurochemistry. The fog has a crack in it. What you feel now is acetylcholine beginning its work. Phase 3, cognitive priming. 90 seconds. This is the phase where most executives leave the most performance on the table, not because they lack capability, they are extraordinarily capable, but because they walk into their most important meetings without a cognitive target. The human brain is not a general-purpose processing machine. It is a goal-seeking system, and when you give it a specific emotionally charged objective before a high-stakes interaction, it pre-activates the precise neural networks required to achieve it. Language centers, social cognition architecture, goal pursuit circuitry, all warm and ready before you speak your first word. This is what elite athletes call visualization, what Navy SEAL units call mental rehearsal, what top-tier negotiators call framing, and it is available to you in 90 seconds. Ask yourself one question, a single question. Answer it out loud, even just under your breath. What is the one outcome that, if I achieve it in the next 60 minutes, makes this meeting a success regardless of everything else? State it. Hear yourself say it. Then close your eyes for 30 seconds and see it specifically. What do you say? What do they respond? What does the close of this meeting look and feel like? That 90-second mental rehearsal is moment for moment the highest ROI cognitive investment you can make before any high-stakes interaction. You are no longer the cortisol-saturated, overflow-affected executive who was sitting at that desk 4 minutes ago. You're a different physiological state, a different cognitive profile, a different leader. The meeting hasn't started, and you've already changed the outcome. Now, I want to talk about something that most protocols completely ignore. The reset works, the science is real, but even the most meticulously designed 4-minute protocol gets sabotaged the moment your environment is engineered against it. And in 2026, most professional environments are, by design, by default, by cultural pressure, actively hostile to cognitive recovery. So, let's fix the container. The most sophisticated professionals I work with have done something that might surprise you. They've automated their focus protection, not just defended it verbally or aspirationally, but systematically built their digital and physical workspace to enforce recovery windows the way a calendar enforces meetings. Here's what that looks like in practice. Workspace, haptics, and calendar automation. If you use a wearable or haptic-enabled workspace system, configure a reset mode trigger. When a calendar event ends and the next begins in less than 8 minutes, your system automatically mutes notifications and sends one single alert. Your reset window has begun. Over weeks of repetition, your nervous system learns to respond to that signal. You don't have to decide to reset. The decision is made for you.
Deep work status indicators. On whatever communication platform your organization uses, set a custom status that communicates with intent, not just do not disturb, something specific. 4-minute reset, back at 2:17.
This protects your window from interruption, and it models high-performance recovery habits to everyone who sees it. When you reset visibly, you give your team permission to do the same. Leadership is permission. What tools are you currently using to protect your focus? Comment below, because some of the most powerful productivity insights I've ever encountered have come not from research papers, but from this community of practitioners. Micro-stretching. This one surprises almost every executive I work with and then immediately makes sense once I explain the mechanism. Sedentary video call culture creates what sports medicine researchers now call static tension accumulation, a chronic buildup of muscular contraction in the neck, trapezius, chest, and hip flexors that doesn't release between meetings. That tension activates pain signaling pathways that maintain cortisol elevation. Your body is telling your brain it's under threat, and your brain believes it. You cannot fully reset a stressed brain inside a chronically tense body. So, in the 60 seconds following your reset window, do this. Roll your shoulders backward 5 times, extend your thoracic spine gently over the back of your chair, and stand briefly to open your hip flexors. 60 seconds. The neurological dividend is disproportionate to the investment. Now I want to zoom out, because everything I've shown you so far is reactive. It's what you do after a draining meeting before the next one begins. But the executives who truly transform their performance trajectory don't just react to decision fatigue, they architect against it. And that is a completely different level of play. Here's the practice I call the high-stakes junction audit. Once a week, I recommend Sunday evening or Monday morning before your first call, open your calendar and look at your entire week as a sequence, not meeting by meeting, as a map. Now identify the junctions, the moments where a cognitively depleted mind would cost you the most, the critical negotiation scheduled right after 3 back-to-back calls, the board presentation that follows a difficult stakeholder conversation, the final decision-making session booked at the end of a heavy Friday. Those are your high-stakes junctions. Those are the moments where the return on a 4-minute investment is not incremental, it is exponential. A 5% improvement in cognitive clarity in a standard catch-up? Marginal. A 5% improvement during a negotiation where the delta is a 7-figure contract? That 5% becomes the margin of victory. Block 4 minutes before each high-stakes junction. Name them deliberately in your calendar. Reset window. Make them as non-negotiable as the meetings they precede. And here is what I have watched happen consistently, not occasionally, not anecdotally, consistently with the leaders I coach over 6 weeks of this practice. They stop describing themselves as exhausted by leadership. They begin describing themselves as energized by it. Because clarity compounds. Focus compounds. The neurological recovery habits you build in week 1 become the competitive infrastructure of your leadership in year 3. We are not just talking about your next meeting. We're talking about leadership longevity, the capacity to sustain your highest level cognitive and emotional output across decades of a high-demand career without sacrificing your health, your relationships, or your judgment. The leaders who reach the pinnacle and remain there are almost universally those who understood early recovery is not an indulgence. Recovery is a performance discipline, one that compounds invisibly until one day you look around and you're the only one still operating at full capacity when everyone else has hit the wall. Here is your challenge, and I mean this as a direct personal invitation, not a scripted call to action. The next calendar event in your schedule right now, whatever it is, I want you to perform the executive reset before you join. 4 minutes. Phase 1, 60 seconds. Screens down, feet flat, eye scanning physical space. Phase 2, 60 seconds. 4 complete rounds of box breathing. In 4, hold 4, out 4, hold 4. Phase 3, 90 seconds. State your one objective out loud. Visualize the outcome specifically. Then join your meeting. And when it's over, come back here. Tell me what shifted. Did your presence feel different? Did your thinking feel cleaner? Did you catch yourself not reacting in a way you normally would have? Share it in the comments. Because this community is not a passive audience. This community is a living research group of high performers running real experiments in real professional environments. Every comment you leave shapes the science we build here. Your data matters in ways that go far beyond this video.
Now, before you go, I need your input for what comes next. What performance hurdle are you most exhausted by in 2026? What is the invisible problem inside your professional life that no one is making genuinely useful content about? The recurring obstacle, the bottleneck no productivity advice seems to address, the thing you've quietly accepted as just part of leadership, even though it's costing you energy, clarity, and results every week. Drop it in the comments. I'm reading every word because the next video isn't built around what I think you need. It is built around what you tell me. That is the deal I make with this community. You show up honest, I show up useful. If this gave you something real today, subscribe. Share it with one person in your professional network who you know is grinding through back-to-back meetings and wondering why they feel so depleted by 3 p.m. That might be the most valuable thing you do for someone today. My name is Silas Kincaid. All of this is what high performance actually looks like from the inside. I'll see you in the next one.